Welcome to a new episode of the XR Magazine podcast. My name is Diana Olenik, your host, and today we're going to be speaking about the leader from Warp VR. While working at KLM, Guido saw the challenge of on-the-job training and learning in an operational environment. That brought him to the quest he started 6 years ago, releasing the power of virtual reality on a scalable, close to real-life training and development for a more effective, mobile, and engaging way of learning. He is also actively engaged in the challenge of being the father of 3 young boys, and we're going to be learning about safety training and the management of data. I can't wait to begin. Let's do it. Thank you so much, Guido, for being here today. How is everything going on your side?
Thank you, Diana, for having me. It's everything. I'm located in the Netherlands, so it's actually it's gray, as you can expect in winter, and it's pretty cold, but not below freezing point, unfortunately, because then we could ice skate. But yeah, other than that, it's the beginning of 2023, so it's an exciting year for us as a business, but of course also personal with 3 kids, 3 young boys running around. So it's we're ready for it.
Yeah, that sounds like a beautiful time in life. And also, as you mentioned, 2023 is a great opportunity for us as well as every year to start capitalizing more and more in these rapid changes that technology is having right now, and the releases of maybe new devices and new stuff going on. So that's an exciting time for all the people that is in this field. Thank you so much.
For sure.
Please let us know a little bit about yourself in any direction that you want to go. It's all welcome, because this is all about humanity and how we are anyways connected with technology. So learning about a little bit your personal side, how did you begin, or from any point that you want to start, and how this take you to create, or with your team, Warp VR.
Yes, thank you so much. So, the question is, where do you begin? But let's say I studied architecture. Because back in the days, when I was very young, I wanted to become a carpenter even. I could go to study at a university. So I went, eventually I went to the Technical University in Delft. But in the end, I kind of more drifted in the way of urban development and urban management. So not necessarily the very architectural part, but more the how do you design with, humans and processes and kind of the workflow. And then by chance, I ended up at KLM. So that's the airline, one of the oldest or the oldest airline in the world, where I started within the IT department, did various things, also Air France KLM, because of course that's the group. Also kind of bringing departments together when it was still very early days. But it was also the place where I kind of started my own startup already back then, which was all about gamification and serious games, and how do you apply that within the company. And in that kind of, journey, I also came across kind of various, let's say business challenges, where I kind of, in summary, I saw the challenge of situational training and on-the-job training, and how do you do that in such an operational environment with large groups of people, and how do you make that kind of repeatable and scalable, right? So, and that's, it's very difficult for companies to train at scale in that sense. Combining that with virtual reality and specifically 360 video, which I came across back then, and I'm talking 6, 7, 8 years ago. So it's been a while. And combining that and kind of a gamification layer, the opportunities or the challenges, and then making 360 video interactive. So creating kind of really learning environments where you can learn by doing and by experiencing and experiencing consequences. So that's where it kind of all started for me. And in the end, this was kind of the setup for another, let's say dream or ambition I had to start my own company. So that's where kind of Warp VR was born.
Oh, that's interesting to know the background. I find very interesting as well that you come from an architectural background, because I love architecture somehow. I'm an engineer, but also I have some love for architecture, and we create digital experiences that are based on architectural spaces anyways.
Yeah.
So that's a very, very interesting background. I appreciate sharing that. And also, that journey that led you to go through an airline unexpectedly, and then going to working with the training aspect of companies to end up in Warp VR, creating actually training for the workforce, right? So please let us know a little bit about those beginnings of Warp VR. What were the challenges at the beginning, and how did you overcome them?
So, really in the beginning, 360 video, which was for us, kind of the starting point, and maybe a little bit on the reason why, because of course, we have kind of the 3D world and the kind of the computer generated world, but we really focused on 360 video from the start. And basically it had a couple of reasons. One, it was real, or it is real, right? So it is as close to reality as you can get. Real situations, real locations, real people, right? And that emotional element was what kind of attracted me and my partners to say, okay, let's go down that route. And having that vision of when we make it interactive and you can play it on a headset or even a mobile phone, then you can scale it, right? Because then it doesn't matter anymore if you want to train 5 people or 5,000 people. It is available. That situation is digitally available. Mm. So that's where we start. We start actually with an evacuation training within KLM. That was one of the first kind of projects, right? What do you do when the siren goes, right? The alarm goes. And you have to go outside, and everybody knows that real life drill, right? Whether you're in an office or in a hangar in this case. But what happens, and that is connecting to that business challenge, is okay, so the alarm goes and then everybody walks outside, right? And we follow each other because probably my colleague in front of me will know what to do. And then I hope I end up outside without any harm. But and then when everybody's out, then we're trained, right? All together. But the question, of course, is when really something happens, when there is a really dangerous situations, how do you then react? Because then the situation becomes emotional and challenging and has an emotional impact on you. And that triggers fight, flight, or freeze mechanisms, right? So that's where it becomes, how do you respond in a real situation? And then to begin with the question, how do I get those situations to people instead of those people having to go to that situation? And that core is where we are still at. But the challenge, a kind of additional challenge let's say posed on ourselves was, okay, so now we were able to create such experiences, right? So the evacuation training we did, but we also did a CPR training. We did something for the fire department. But in the end, we wanted to provide the tools or give the tools in the hands of other creators, right? So that's where the first idea began, okay, let's create a tool, which is now Warp Studio, and is a platform where we enable others, people, institutions, companies to start creating, distributing, and also analyzing their own VR content. But it really started, and the struggle was, of course, on, when we started with 360 video. I don't know if you ever, went down that route, but, we 3D printed kind of a mold or where you had to put in the 360, what was it? The GoPro cameras, right? So with all the different angles, and then eventually, you could kind of create that sphere where the stitch lines were hopefully, connecting. So all that into hopefully create something which was really close to real life. Those were the challenges of let's say, the first steps of what we were doing.
Yeah, I can see trying to stitch everything, and that is a lot of manual work. And I guess, that's a lot of recognition there for all of that, trying to create that solution and bring the actual situational scenario as it would happen in real life. I think that is crucial, and that is one of the main differences between the training that we are having right now in companies, where I myself as an engineer, I've been in many safety trainings in the construction company. It's a lot of this type of training. And I have experienced firsthand how it is to have CPR, the fire, like the scaffolds, all of this type of training, but it's all mostly theory, first of all. And second, if you are trying to, if you're wearing the harness and you're trying to replicate, you're not under something super important that you mentioned, the emotional pressure, which is what makes you act different. One thing is to have the theory, but another thing is to feel like you're actually there, which completely derails the theory, and you forget about what were all the procedures. So I'm super excited that you mentioned that. If anybody is listening to this and is trying to create an experience related with training, this is absolutely important, essential. That now with this technology, we have the possibility to actually replicate a scenario which might trigger the real emotions that might happen, and more studying this type of data, then that's how we can refine more these experiences to know exactly what potential outcomes could come out of the situation and how people react in these real scenarios. That's amazing.
Very true.
Yeah. So when you created these 360 videos, and then people started using them with the Oculus at that time as well, right?
Yeah.
How did you evolve to actually using, maybe instead of the 360 videos, other resources, if you have done that?
Yeah. No, well, actually, we stayed with 360 video.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think what one of the biggest learnings we had kind of in that journey is that in the end, what the power is, so a couple of things. So first, you also mentioned e-learning, or let's say the traditional methods of learning is very theoretical. It's very knowledge-based. Of course, on the other end of the spectrum, we have that real-life training, but that's not scalable, right? It's you have to be there. It's on a Monday morning. It's cold. You are with 20 people. You cannot hear what the instructor is saying. It's, you have free coffee, but that's about it, right? So that's, and it's sometimes good to have some physical practice. Yes. But let's say in between or in addition, that situational part, which you also touched upon, is very much missing. So that was the piece we wanted to bring. And let's say the philosophy under that we saw, and that's why we're still with 360 video, is much more the story-based approach, right? So putting you in a real-life situation. because current training is also very instructional. You have to do this, you have to do A, B, and C, right? Okay, which is, which really helps. But the question is, do you still remember that you have to do first A, then B, then C, when you're under pressure and when you're in that real situation? And that's where kind of we're taking it now and really refining it, is putting you in that story, right? Scenario story based. We are humans, right? We learn by doing, but we are also very prone to stories. We're visual beings. So it's, and that's again, the core of what we're trying to do is basically bring that experience digitally to you. And now you have that in your backpack, right? So, and that can be for safety, but it can also be for nursing, right? And so when you come out of school or during school, you can have all the theory, but it gets really trying in that sense, or difficult, or challenging when you're in a room with the family of the patient and where they are very unhappy with the treatment you're giving, or where there is a dilemma you have to solve at that point in time, which is all about, experience and that human interaction but those situations you can hardly train. And then if you look across industries, there are thousands, millions, I don't know the number, but there are almost an infinite amount of situations where you would want people to be able to train in. And that's where kind of our, mission vision is moving towards, is kind of building that library of the future, where you can say, now you can take a book and take knowledge in, but we're moving and we're building that library of the future where you can take an experience and you have more experience to gain and more confidence to engage in real life situations.
Yeah, that's amazing. I understand that you also implemented in your platform the possibility to analyze training performance. So my question is, how did you do that? What type of training performance businesses or companies can be aware of, and your experience creating them?
Yeah, so thanks. Great question in this. Also because, of course, there's a lot of value and potential value in the data, right? So in a way, it's the first time that you actually have data on performance, on how do people respond, what do they do, what decisions do they make in this certain situation or at this certain point in time in that situation. So we capture that data. How fast do you respond? What choices do you make? Where do you look? Right? All that let's say performance data. Let's say I wanted to say funny thing, but it's, let's say, interesting thing is that is very much at the early stage, right? VR and VR training is an early stage, but use of data is even before that.
Yeah.
It's becoming more and more, but it's more at first, it's about the creation of the scenario. How the hell are we going to create that flow? How are we going to create that storyboard, that storyline? Okay, now how can we film? And how can we do that? And how can we then make it one experience? And then how can we distribute it? So there's a whole chain of things before actually capturing the data. And with a couple of clients, we're now at that stage, or starting to get at that stage, where they say, okay, now we've trained 300, 3,000, whatever the number is, people, let's have a better look at the data. So what can we learn? And the interesting thing also is that you can use the data on an individual level, right? Because now I can say, okay, let's take this soft skill situation, a sales training or a difficult customer training. And then you say, okay, so I can give you a evaluation form before, And so you can kind of self-assess. Okay, I think I would score this and this. Then you go into the scenario, and then you do a post-evaluation, but also based on the data, you can do kind of a one-on-one peer session where you say, okay, what did you do? And there's a big difference I think in the shift there, because before or without using VR, it's much more about what would you do, right? So this is the situation. Mm-hmm. What would you do? Which is very different than, okay, now you've been in the situation, you did stuff. So now it's more about the data, what you actually did, instead of what would you do? So there's this, I think, very interesting shift possible. And of course on the individual level, but also on kind of a group level, because now you can even see, okay, in the evacuation scenario example, everybody has to go to the left, but now I see out of 100, 30 people go to the right.
Yeah.
Well, why is that? Right? It can be the situation. It can even be a sign somewhere, which we never noticed, but apparently is unclear, or nudges people to make the wrong decision. So there's this whole field and, insights to be gained from using the data. And as you can maybe tell, I'm excited about the possibilities, but it's also very early days. And we also did some, well, let's say front running work with the lady also in the US, Jennifer Rogers, to see, okay, so how can we take the data and maybe even connect it to, let's say, for example, a safety system, right? So what is the matrix? What are the skills that you need to have, and how are we going to assess them, and how? So there's a whole world to be won.
Yeah, for sure. That's super interesting. I can even kind of foresee the use of artificial intelligence at some point in all of this, with sensors and stuff that can read all of these behaviors and all of these things and inform more how to make it like spaces more safer even. Yes. Yeah. Actually, before this happen, like a risk assessment based on data, preventing the accidents and stuff. So, it is like, wow.
Yes.
I can see a lot of application there. Like your platform actually, it seems on the outset only training, but it's even more than that. Like it's even like could be a platform as well for research purposes and to evolve into the data. What you mentioned, that is right now we don't care a lot about the data during the training. But now with this, we can incorporate the data and evolve it into a feeding system for make it actually better. Yes. Right now, the experiences end in the training, and it's all your problem. Whenever this happens, you're supposed to behave, which is so outdated when we think about it. Is how are we expecting people to? It's actually silly to think that.
Exactly.
But that's the training that all the companies are having right now. It's insane. Yes. So this is a call for companies to evolve into what is available right now, because those are not going to be, if something happens, pretty sure those trainings are not going to be remembered letter by letter. Exactly. And even if they were remembered, behavior is one thing and knowledge is another thing. So thank you for pointing that out. You also mentioned that you have, you created some sort of way where creators also can put their experiences there. Can you please expand on that? That sounds super exciting.
Yes. Well, I was hoping that you would ask that question, because in the end, that's kind of the core of who we are, and what we want to do. In a way, we want to democratize VR and the creation of VR, right? Mm-hmm. So that's part of the goal. So Warp Studio, in a way, is a SaaS platform, right? Software as a service, where you can log in and where you have all the tools to, as well as a creator, but basically as anybody, you can start creating your own scenarios, and that can be very simple, like a tour around your house, right? It can be that level, but it can all stretch all the way into a very complex soft skill scenario where you have interactions with humans and difficulties and all that. The platform, in a way, is provides you with the building blocks to really easily create, and really it's about drag and drop. It looks like a kind of a decision flow, but it's also a collaboration tool where you and your colleague and maybe another 5 colleagues can literally work together as a Google Sheet or a Miro or whatever the tools you're familiar with, in saying, okay, so what is the scenario? What is my learning goal? Who am I? Where am I? What are the dilemmas, right? So you all plot that out into a scenario. And in addition to that, you also think about what should happen then in the video, right? So it's about, hey, what are the interactions? What are the elements? So you map that out and you have all the connections. So you really have that kind of decision tree, image in front of you where you can drag and drop. And then based on that, because you also thought about, okay, what should I film? What piece of video should be part of this? You scripted it in that sense. You can easily export that flow into a script. So now you can print it out or bring it to the set, and now you know exactly what you need to film. So you can be very efficient in your filming, right? So we often see half a day or a day or max 2. You actually have all your all your scenes, all your pieces of video recorded. Because those are not long pieces of video, right? It's short. It's like 30 seconds, 40 seconds, because within that short scene, you're going to make a decision. You're going to go left or right or whatever the decision is, and you will progress into another scene. And a 360 camera is readily available, right? It's like $500 or $800, and you have a full set and you're good to go. So, back in the days when we started, the whole editing was super complex and difficult and stitching, but now there's software which comes with often the 360 camera, which all does it almost instantly. And then you have your pieces of video, you upload them to the platform, and you basically connect the flow you already had with the pieces of video. You position your interaction elements. You hit publish, and a couple of minutes later, your own VR scenario is ready to be played. And you can play it on a mobile phone, you can play it on a tablet, you can play it on a headset. And as of, let's say now, you can also play it in your web browser. Of course, not the best and fully immersive experience, but still, it's a stepping stone also for companies to get there, right? So you publish, and then people start playing. And then, of course, then we're back at the data part, because then you get all the data in from where they're playing. But yeah, so that's the core. It's really a tool. You can do it. You can have your own scenario up and running in, let's say, a couple of days, even, because it's that easy to do.
Wow. I have to say that I love the tool, because it is like every time we see more and more of these companies bringing more of these possibilities to creators to become more independent into how they want to customize it, for their own situation. And also for these creators, I guess, also having the opportunity to other people discover how they are doing this work, or if maybe this can also be an experience that works for someone else, so sharing that. I think that that's a great way to go. There is the opportunity for companies to deal directly with business to business, but also there is the opportunity for the company to grow through the talents of other people, like creators, rather than themselves doing all of this scalability, hiring people to create all of these experiences. So I think that is a very, very smart move and very good example for people to learn in, scaling these companies and experiences. I am very excited about your platform. We're going to be doing a couple of videos sharing that. And also, I like to highlight that, you created all of these massive things, just like to make a conclusion here. You're a lovely father of 3 boys, a beautiful family. So busy. How do you manage to create all of these? How do you work with your team? If you like to share, just to make a summary here or conclusion.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, of course, how to balance personal and business life. As a team, we are, as of, end of this month, we're fully remote. So we said goodbye to our office, which is an interesting, experiment almost. So we're now a team of 10. We're based in or close to Rotterdam in the Netherlands. But now, basically, everywhere, because we already have a team member in Macedonia. We have a team member in Mexico. So we're already kind of, dispersed around the globe as it is. But I think the impact for me is that, it can be flexible. And I think that's the best way to make it work. Also, with the 3 boys at home and, also the challenge there. But, it's that finding that balance, which is not always easy. Of course not. But, so far so good. And then, of course, it helps to have these kinds of conversations, to have, these, that it's, you feel that you're contributing and that you're, that we're moving somewhere. So that gives the energy to make it happen.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think that I like to share a lot about the human aspect of, this creation, because at the end of the day, we see the apps there in the store and it's just the app, it's just the product, but there is a human behind that product. And it's super nice to understand the life of the person. What are their values? What drives them? Their mission, their why, which is what makes people to want to maybe explore more the app as understanding, he's just like me. I have some kids. I also have challenges like that. He understands where I'm coming from. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think that is so beautiful that you're living fully, first of all, remote with the company, because I think that that's the future. I don't believe anymore in having people standing in a place and committing with certain schedule. We have to think like beyond, which is like the humanity that we're speaking about. People can be as productive as as it evolves more and more and more technology allows for that. We can be as effective and as productive in a different setting, perhaps, and with the flexibility of still enjoying things for life. For example, you want to be flexible to still enjoy some minutes with your kids, which is beautiful.
Exactly.
And giving the opportunity to other human beings to also experience their humanity and share with their family is something that is super beautiful. And I really appreciate that you're setting that example.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much.
We're trying.
Thank you so much for that opportunity to learn from you, to listen to your journey, which is what inspires people actually. And I'm inviting anybody to check out Warp VR and the studio. So I'm also going to be inviting some students there to check it out for, start creating some experiences in your platform, because it has a lot of potential. And also it facilitates greatly, as per the process described by you, the actual publishing of experience that can help other people as well.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Diana, for this opportunity. It was a real pleasure. And of course, I hope, there's some, people take some inspiration, because I think you're very right. And that very much is also something we as a company, but also as the founders, hold high, I should say, is that human aspect. right? And that's for us as persons, as a business, but also in those experiences, right? Because that's where we try to bring that human to human aspect also into the scenarios, right? Whereas e-learning or training is sometimes very impersonal. This is an opportunity to really bring that back into. I'm really happy that that's the core and that's the summary of what we talked about. So thank you for that. That's what you brought out.
Thank you so much, and see you in the next episode. Bye for now.